Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Mindfuel, where we are making mental fitness accessible to endurance athletes so you can train your brain as consciously as you train your body. Today, we are diving into goal setting and specifically, in the words of our guest, how to choose your race in a society that rewards spectacle over sincerity. Wow. So, joining us for this discussion on those intriguing and wise words is Jonathan van Geuns. Welcome to Mindfuel, Jonathan.
Thank you. That's a beautiful intro. I love it.
Well, we've got more quotes coming. We're very excited to have you here. Before we dive into your perspective on goal setting, we like to start every episode by asking our guests to introduce themselves, not by telling us what you do, but first by explaining who you are. So, how would a friend describe you, Jonathan?
I'll try to stay positive. um, so I guess a friends would describe me as researcher, writer, critic, someone who loves to get political, someone who's thoughtful and caring about them, I guess. Talking a lot about my athletes now, I'm thinking from their perspective because they're friends too. Yeah, somebody who cares deeply about people.
Yeah, well, those are very nice things. So thank you for sharing. And you've given us some hints here, but can you explain a bit more your relationship to endurance sports?
Sure, I'm an ultra runner myself for about a decade now. I'm also a coach. So I coach athletes from 5K to 200 milers. I've run myself 5Ks to 200 milers. I love the racing. I love the journey, the process of running. I love big adventures in the mountain. That's how I started myself. I didn't grow up hiking or um, running in the mountains, not even close to that. I kind of discovered it myself in the UK when I used to live there. I live in Canada now. And yeah, it was in the mountains and I loved it so much. I felt very much at home, even though it was such a uncomfortable experience. I could not see myself doing anything else than that. So yeah, that's been my life basically for the last decade or so.
You're so passionate about running. And ironically, based on the conversation we're going to have today, we met because Instagram suggested that I follow you. And we're going to tackle this world of algorithms today and how it has some benefits and some drawbacks. But this was a big benefit. And all of that to say, when I reached out to you to share a bit more about Mindfuel, because I thought that our ways of thinking had some similarities and that it would be really interesting to get to know you and pick your brain a little bit. One of the things that really struck me and convinced me that you had to be part of this journey was your passion and how much, you've already said it, that you care for your athletes, how much you love to learn about running and how much of that you bring to your
Mhm.
athletes and continue to upskill yourself. So you do have a blog I'll mention and we'll post it in the notes for the show called Waybound Running. And a couple of the posts there that really struck a chord with me were on this topic of goal setting. And I can't say it as well as you. And when I reread these posts, again, we'll put these in the show notes, but there's just so much that I'm like, that's a quote, that's a quote, that's a quote. So I've pulled a few out to kind of tee up this conversation today. Burnout is a feature, not a bug. Rest doesn't trend. Rehab doesn't go viral. And we are less interested in effort than we are in becoming the kind of person who does, and insert difficult race here in
Mhm,
this
mhm.
block of text. The deep listening required to choose a race is based not on public optics. And it is a noisy world that we live in today, and we're bombarded with options, which on the one hand is incredible because we can probably find things that interest us that would have been very difficult to know about in the past, but on the other hand may tempt us to do something that isn't right for us or that we're not doing for the right reasons. So before we get into that in more detail, I'd first love to hear how you became so passionate about this topic and why it has featured so strongly on your blog.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. So I do have to go a little bit into what I do as well, because my background as a lawyer and a researcher is actually looking at the governance of technology and AI, which I've been doing for a while. I work in the nonprofit sector, and we look at it from a sort of critical angle. So I've kind of been delving into the implications of AI. So it's been always top of mind for me. I live kind of in both worlds, so the running world and the tech world. Social media is not specifically something I have looked at. The research that I've done for my work is very similar to what I've noticed happening in social media around running or any other endurance sports. Like I've had people come to me being inspired basically by what they've seen on YouTube, and they've had no background in running, but they would like to chase the same kind of goals.
Can you give an example of what they're seeing on YouTube that they bring to you?
Yeah, there are a few documentaries that are extremely popular with close to 1 million views or even more, like around 200 milers, like The King of Moab by Max Joseph. Fantastic documentary, a fantastic person too, very inspiring, and it grabs us. The story grabs us. We can very much identify with the person as a white male, and yeah, it kind of makes us want to chase those same goals. But the story doesn't tell all the lead up to it. It gives a bit of a background around it, but it doesn't tell the years of work, the athletic talent, the history of running that that person has gone through, or other journeys in sports, the environment they live in, the hard work, the injuries, everything around it. So we get a distorted picture of what it means, but we do want it because it looks very, very cool, and we want to be cool too. We can try to skip some steps and get there as quickly as possible. I've experienced that myself with people coming to me, and then they get a reality check because it's not an overnight success. You have to start with just going out the door, starting with one rocks and etc. Dealing with an injury, dealing with setbacks.
So I guess on that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting one to dig into a little bit more. How do you really help your athletes choose the right goal for them? And in the case that they've come to you with something that might not be healthy to do, at least let's say this year, and it's something that needs to be built up toward, how do you manage that conversation? And what kinds of data do you bring to them to help support your point of view?
Yeah, I don't think quote unquote right goals magically appear. I think it's very personal. It is very connected to like your life and where you are in life. And so this season you're living in, it's very much about what you enjoy doing as well. There's a lot to unpack before you find your right goal. And sometimes like it just opens up for you. So it's really hard to give an answer to that. It requires a little bit of detective work and untangling and asking the why questions. That's the short answer to it. But sometimes it takes a lot of time. And especially now, for example, we're in the season of the year where people are starting to think about next year, what they want to prepare for. And I always ask people not to rush into making decisions about the next year. But I do love having those conversations, to be honest. It's really fun. And yeah, sometimes it takes a while. And there's actually more to unpack as well. Like, what does joy mean for you? How are you able to do logistically? What does your future self tell you about the race? Like when you do it and after you've done it.
Fascinating. And I guess when we pay a coach to help us with that, we end up being accountable to someone else. But I think if I'm not mistaken, you self-coach. So for those who don't have someone kind of in their corner, how do they do that for themselves?
Yeah. I do have a coach, but I've also self-coached for a while. Yeah, I think sitting with some of these questions, first of all, like where am I at in the season of life? Being honest about like, okay, I have a busy job, I have a child coming, or I have a toddler running around the house. I have a lot of stress or don't. Like, where are you? What kind of bandwidth do you have to put up the training for a big goal? And what do you enjoy doing? Like, do you enjoy going out in the winter and running through the snow? There's a lot of things you can ask yourself, but there's also a lot you can adapt to. Like if you're logistically not able to travel across the world to do a race, what can you do close to home that you would be really interested in doing? It doesn't have to be a race. It can be an FKT, which we've doing running, a fastest known time. So you can look at a trail nearby and that can inspire you. You can make your own adventures like that. And those can be as exciting for myself too. Like I always tell people I enjoy the journey as much as I enjoy the race. So I really love the process of it. I love just going out in the mountains for like a big training camp. That gives me as much joy. So I look forward as much to doing that as doing the race itself. Yeah,
I think that's so important because things can get in the way, especially on a race day. That's one day out of the year, and so much can happen for that single day. And if we don't keep that perspective of the joys in the process of having got here, I think it can bring up some really tough and negative emotions, and perhaps even lead to a bit of resentment with the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I look for in an athlete that I coach, and maybe with myself as well, though with myself it's usually a lot messier, but with an athlete I look at like relief and excitement. If there's excitement but there isn't a relief, then it is more like an impulse. If it's a relief without excitement, then it's more like an obligation. And if it's both, then it's more aligned. That's sort of like my go-to.
A good pearl of wisdom. And what happens when suddenly mid-season we've set this goal, we realize that's no longer attainable, whether it's a change in our life outside of running, that means we logistically can't do that race, or we can't put in the training time, or something related to running, we get injured. How do you support athletes through that? And not just the process of adjusting to that, but also then thinking about what goals can we set instead? Or do you
Mhm.
already have tiered goals that you may have set and re-anchor someone on?
Yeah, it's a really tough one. It's a very personal one because I've gone through this year myself. I had a massive A goal, um, returning to a race that I really enjoyed doing. It didn't happen because I got several injuries, and so I had to change gear. I thought I could do different races later, but the injuries lingered. So basically, I took this season off from racing, but I found enjoyment in other parts of running and training. The easy answer and sort of the cliche answer is to think about the journey and the process rather than the specific goal. And that's always longer than a race within a year. There's always the next year and a year after, and there's always a bigger fish or a different fish that you can catch. So I try to paint that picture with an athlete. What I personally also always like to do is to have several goals in the future, and I have so many. Like there's so many races that I would like to do or adventures. So it's not hard to refocus on something else, but I do like to have a few things sort of in the pipeline. So if my A goal doesn't happen, I can switch to the next one because I already signed up for it or I'm planning to do something else. It kind of also relieves some of the pressure of focusing only on that one goal, and it's tough. But we can also learn a lot from races that don't go as you hope to go, or they just don't happen. Yeah,
I think playing that long game is so key and something we hear consistently across the conversations we have at Mindfuel, but it's really hard.
yeah,
So I guess it comes up a lot because we all need the reminder, but that joy in the process and the thinking ahead and being able to take, what you're learning and what you're achieving now and thinking about how even 2 or 3 years down the line, even if it's still a little bit murky, you're not sure what's in store, it is helpful to maintain that perspective. Hopefully, we'll all be doing our sports for a long time, so we can think longer term.
for sure. Yeah.
I want to come back a bit to this topic of social media that we started the conversation with. And I guess based both on your own personal use, but also some of the professional knowledge that you have, how do you recommend curating a helpful feed
Mhm.
to actually support your goals and your training and hopefully avoid some of the shiny object or comparison trap that we might fall into with the content that's surfaced to us.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough because we're fed a certain version of the spectacle, and these algorithms or these social media platforms work in a way that they reward something that attracts the most viewers. For that, you need a specific type of spectacle, which they know what it is, and they know what attracts people to watch it. So it becomes like it becomes a journey of untangling yourself from what they want you to be, meaning that maybe you should just avoid any of it, which is hard because like I probably look at YouTube every day of the year, right? There's so much that I do on it, or Instagram or any other platform. It's hard to not get sucked into it. Yeah, I don't have an answer other than try to avoid these platforms entirely.
I think if you had an answer, it was a bit of an unfair question because I think you'd probably be a very rich man since I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to untangle themselves. I find it difficult in this endurance sports world because social media is such a good place to actually get information, useful information. And I love following professional triathlon, for example. It's not a mainstream sport that gets coverage on the BBC or other major news outlets. And so social media is the place for that. I think you're right. Like it comes back to A, being conscious of how you're using it, and B, really asking those questions when you see something that gets you excited about why is that, and being honest with yourself, and maybe having someone, whether it's a coach or a partner or a friend, to hold you accountable to make sure that your why is what continues to steer you, not achievement that can be showcased or comparison to what you're seeing on social media.
For sure. And like you said, are many benefits too. Like I would probably have never ventured into the mountains if I had not had seen someone posting a beautiful trail run on YouTube back in the days when there were just a handful of people doing that. So yes, it does democratize a lot of it. But it also changes the game. But we can still go back to what we care about most. And in trail running, that is about also a lot about community and caring for each other, helping each other out. And there's still so many races that do that. The majority of races, actually. I don't think we've gone to a point where we've left that space of like caring for small local races. I think those are still very popular, and that's probably because it's very enjoyable, and we really like to be in those spaces, and we don't need a social media feed telling us that.
And let's hope people still continue to support those because they probably won't end up all over everyone's social media. And there's such beauty in that. And as you say, a place that I think real community can exist. Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure having you here today. Thank you very much for your words of wisdom. If you could leave us with one succinct thought on goal setting, what would that be?
That would be choose goals that energize you, just as the rest of life. Set goals that match your life. Listen to the quiet yes in you, not the one that's like blasting in your headphones, and let it grow with you. Give it time.
Yes, I love
Mhm.
that. I've never heard someone describe it that way. Beautiful. Jonathan, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, learn more, read your blog?
Yeah. I have my website, wayboundrunning.com. So I post some blogs on there. I'm mostly active on Instagram. I also follow into that. But I love to connect with people there. I love to hear people's ideas around any of the topics that I discussed there, just to connect with people. And my Instagram handle is my full name, Jonathan van Geuns.
We will link all of that here and as well on our website in the experts section. And if this resonated with you, we would love for you to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Any follow-up comments or questions, you can post in the comments below or email us at connect@mindfuel.fit. If you haven't already, check out some of the other content that we've produced and head over to our website at mindfuel.fit for more resources and to subscribe to our mailing list. Jonathan, thank you again so much for this. It's been such a pleasure. And for all of you for watching, happy and healthy training. See
Thank
you.
you, Laura. Thank you.